In this video I want to share with you how you can make your sequences sound more hypnotic. So instead of creating just a random collection of notes, you create something really intriguing and atmospheric. And the best thing is, you really don't need to do much, and also in the end you will see that with a few tweaks you can turn this into some really fun performance concept that opens up some possibilities for creating a sequence over time and therefore making a little arrangement. My name is Yannis and let's jump right into it. Before we start composing notes, let's actually check the sound, because while it's a very simple setting, it's really important for creating the hypnotic vibe, because we have some effects that create quite some atmosphere. Mostly like a delay. So you can see I have it on some dotted eighth notes. So if we listen to a quarter note kick drum and play some ones of each bar, we already create some rhythm that dances around the quarter notes, which is really important. So we can actually hear this while we compose. So that's why I like to set up the sound before composing the sequence. Otherwise you compose too many notes and then with the delay it just sounds really messy. So the delay really is some compositional tool here. Also I have some reverb, some Valhalla vintage verb, very basic setting. Again, you can use your favorite reverb. And as the sound, I'm using like a super simple drift preset that I created, which is specifically for creating sequences, because I feel like the Ableton presets are a little too specific, especially if you want to create some nice analog synth sequences. So I created this little patch. You can also download it for free if you're interested. Link is down below in the description. Now, for the actual sequence, our first step is to shorten the sequence length to, for example, 6 steps. But it's important to have like some irregular numbers, so it nicely overlaps in comparison to the quarter note kick drum. And of course, this doesn't need to be techno. I just programmed a kick drum because it's more enjoyable to listen to it compared to a click track. But this could work in some ambient setting just as well. But for example, 6 is a very nice number because we just need one note to start with, like a C3. And together with the kick drum, we create some interesting rhythmic interplay, as you can see. It's like we have two different rhythms going on at the same time, or two different cycles, because just with a super simple sequence like this, you can create this rhythmic trick or this rhythmic illusion that you start with the sequence that will sound like quarter notes, although it's like dotted quarter notes. And at a certain point, you introduce the kick drum and kind of surprise the listener. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then you bring it in. I like this so much. And it's super fun to start with just one note and to experiment with different sequence lengths. So for example, 5 is super interesting as well. Or 7. So that's really like the first step. And as you can see, it's not about choosing tones. You basically have to choose one tone, but it could be any tone. And then it's more about the cyclic feel, because I know from my own experience during my coachings, for example, that people tend to compose notes really quickly. And they're like, oh, I have to compose so much. I have to find lots of different pitches. And I think a better way, especially if you want to create something hypnotic, is to start with just one pitch and to focus on the rhythm or the cycle first. For this video, I'm going to stick to 6 steps. And now you would think, okay, we have a first note, so now we can add all those additional pitches like the intervals, and you can. But there's something more efficient in my opinion, which is starting with octaves. And so you still don't think about tonality, scale, etc. It's about creating octaves which open up the sound, because as you could also see in the intro, if you start with those small steps, I don't know, it can sound a bit dull. Just sounds like a scale fragment. But if you start with octaves, you just open up the sound, because large intervals give you the illusion of a bigger sound, and with the delay, it sounds really atmospheric. can try to compose a lower octave as well. So for example, at the second step, we could bring in like a C2. So we have like already a 2-octave sequence only with octaves, but it sounds really nice. And I think this is really a big thing here, to keep yourself from composing too many notes in the beginning, to start focusing on rhythm and octaves, because this gives you the flexibility to now bring in or to introduce certain intervals. And still, I would kind of recommend to think more in intervals rather than in tonality. So you could start with the minor second, for example, and try, okay, how does it sound if I bring in a minor second, for example, on this position? Sounds quite cool, especially if you change between having the minor second and leaving it out, which is something I'll speak about more in a second when it comes to performing with this sort of approach. But you can try it on different positions. Maybe you also want to try it here. And you see how much impact it has on the whole sequence. So just one interval creates so much atmosphere. We can also try like a major second, although this will sound less spicy. This is more like a tonal kind of sound. It's a bit boring, but maybe the minor third is already more charismatic again. We can try different positions. Major third could also be some interesting change. So you can see less is actually more. One interval can do so much together with like different octaves of like a root note. However, if you want to learn a little more about music theory, because you feel like, okay, this is nice to do this intuitively, but I would like to have some better understanding of scales, tonality, intervals, etc. Be known that I have some online classes. So for example, there's one about music theory with a particular focus on jazz and also tailored towards music producers. So I don't cover sheet music, for example, but there are also other classes like synthesizer basics, rhythm basics, and even more. And there's a bundle where you can get all of them together for a way better price. If you're interested, just check out the links down below in the description. And now we can start to think about developing this idea. So as you could see, it was interesting to introduce some interval, but to also take it out again and to change between those two states. So one fun thing is to duplicate the clip length and to actually, let's actually make this a long one. I mean, this depends on your sequence length, but it's just some example. I think we have it for like 8 times now, and like the second time around, we can bring in this minor second. And so we change between those two versions. Should sound like this. And you can customize this. I mean, if you have like a long sequence like this, you can also do it just a few times, but on irregular positions, for example, like this. And then you could also think of, okay, maybe in the middle, I want to add a fifth, which always is like a nice tone that you can add for gluing things together. Maybe here. This is completely random, but I think it will already make the sequence a little denser and still interesting. So this is one way to go. You can develop it like this. Also, it's super fun to work with probability, but that's maybe a topic for another video. For now, let's actually go back to our initial idea, and I want to share with you how you can create duplicates of this clip, and you can change between different clips in order to make the sequence a little more interesting. So here we're back with our initial clip. And let's actually duplicate it. And for the first one, mute those two notes. So we actually press 0 and we can duplicate it once more. And here we mute the lower octave. So we actually have 3 versions to start with. Only 1 note, 2 notes, and 3 notes. And now, in order to make this sound organic, we also need to change the meter of the whole song or the time signature to 3/4 notes. So we always change where actually this clip cuts off, because otherwise we get some jumps, and I can show it to you. So if we play this clip, so we break this cycle, and we don't want to break the cycle. So it's really important in order to keep this hypnotic vibe. So let's try it like this. So this is really fun. You can change between those different clips and introduce new notes, and therefore keep it interesting, and also decide yourself how long you want to keep a certain version. And then you can continue by, for example, introducing like a minor second. So that's a cool performative element that you can add. So you can just get a launch pad and change between different clips and try to create some little arrangement just by changing between different versions of the sequence. And now we were just speaking about the notes and the basic sound, but there are also so many things you can actually do to the sound in terms of modulation that keep it even more interesting. And I have a video about that I'm going to link here. And also I'm a drummer, and I really like to use my drumming technique for creating sequences, because there's so much potential, and I made a video about that, and you're warmly invited to check it out. I'll link it here. Apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye.